So while we are waiting for the streaming,
Yeah,
uh, you started off with the International Women's Day.
yeah,
And my wife asked me a little while back that why is it that only women are sending each other greetings for the International Women's Day? So I was able to answer it successfully by saying that I've already sent it to all the people in Parisar, and several of them are men. So it's not all of them are
yeah.
women, but generally it looks like at least she has got the greetings from mostly women,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's another, assumption that somehow that's another part of our patriarchal society that men don't that उत्स्फूर्तपणे होत नाही पुरुषांच्याकडनं कदाचित कदाचित I don't know.
And I guess that's another thing that we will deeply touch upon today as well.
Yeah,
Yeah. Shweta, earlier it was showing live on Facebook, at least here on Zoom.
just in recording and then a tick. No.
I think we are.
Okay, now it's
Okay.
streaming.
Yeah. So, good afternoon, everyone, and a very happy International Women's Day. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all the people who have joined us today, either via Zoom or our Facebook live stream. So, a very warm welcome to all of you. Today, we are hosting an amazing panel of speakers with whom we'll be discussing about gender and public transport as part of Parisar's multi-city She Commutes series, webinar series. This particular webinar has been organized in joint collaboration between Parisar and Samyak Sansthan in Pune. The She Commutes webinar series is actually part of a larger statewide campaign, Lakh Ko Pachas campaign, which calls upon the Maharashtra state government to provide both policy and budgetary commitment to improve bus-based public transport system in all the cities of Maharashtra and gradually upgrade the urban bus fleet to a benchmark number of at least 50 buses per lakh urban population. That is Har Lakh ko 50 buses. Now, I would like to call Mr. Sujit Patwardhan, founder, member, and trustee of Parisar, and also the moderator for today's session, to briefly talk about the Lakh Ko 50 bus campaign, which I think will serve as an important context to today's discussion. So, Sujit sir.
Thank you, Swati, and welcome all our guests, all the distinguished guests. I'm very happy to see all of you here, and I will briefly describe, without taking too much time, the Lakh Ko Pachas campaign, which we have. We are in the second phase now. In the first phase, we decided on this topic because everyone understands the importance of public transport. Parisar, which originated as an organization working for the environment, got into transportation because of the uh, biggest damage being done to the environment was from traffic infrastructures, and we have been supporting the bus transport for many years, and we felt that it's necessary to really have a concerted effort to go into all the issues that seem to be the impediments in the path of bus being treated with the respect it deserves, and the number of buses, which is very small, as Swati mentioned. They are the total number of buses available are much less than needed, thus causing overcrowding, people avoiding them, people jumping to two-wheelers because they can't get the bus to go on time, the buses break down. So it's a neglected part of urban development, and which is surprising because all over the world, buses are carrying more people than even their metros. Even in London, buses carry more people. It is surprising to many people when we say that. So we started this first phase with the uh, approach that we need to do something for improving bus systems, aiming the effort at the Maharashtra government, because we were handling the part in Maharashtra. There was another group of Samnet working in Delhi, and uh, and a third one working on all India level. So we have been trying to, spread horizontally as well as vertically to tackle the issues which the bus transport faces, and until there is a efficient, reliable and adequate bus system in every municipal corporation and even smaller bodies, we are going to have a horrendous situation with the traffic congestion, pollution, accidents, and everything. So we started off like this. It is a second phase where we are now concentrating on Maharashtra, and we have um, finalized some demands which are as follows. Um, we feel that bus is an optional kind of an activity for all municipal corporations and the state. If you have money, you give a little bit to the public transport buses. If there are pressure groups working for it, then just as a token or lip service, give some amount, but really adequate amount is not being given. The state government, I mean, the local authority points fingers at the state government, saying that we are anyway short of cash, we don't have enough money, and we know we can't really spare much more than this on the budget. And then what happens is, we are told, oh, we are getting 50 buses by Diwali, we are getting 100 buses by Christmas, but actually you require far higher number. And so we thought that the first demand could be that provision of public transport should be a mandatory um, responsibility of every municipal corporation. Now, municipal corporations are the bigger corporations, but as I said, even the smaller municipalities require this, but I think we can't concentrate everywhere. So we said that this is the benchmark for municipal corporations. And the target of 50 buses per lakh population is something which is arrived at by various experts who have worked in CIRT, that is Central Institute of Road Transport. The Urban Development Ministry in the center has also cited various numbers which are around 50 buses per lakh. As the cities grow and they expand, this number needs to go up. But at least 50 is what we are aiming for, and it won't happen in the first year. It will take a few years perhaps, but unless you have a target of this kind, whatever little number of buses you buy gets nullified by the number of buses which go out of service because of their age. So this is the first part. Public transport should be mandatory. There should be 50 buses per lakh. And then there's a scheme of Government of India which says that they will give viability gap funding. That means everybody knows that public transport is not meant to make profits, and all the public transport organizations are in the red in a way. But we have been saying that it is an essential expense, and it shouldn't be seen as profit and loss, but something which is absolutely essential if a city has to be livable and people have to be able to go to work and earn their living. So the viability gap funding of the government, we are saying that we should insist on the government providing a viability gap funding, so that the bus system doesn't have to every few months uh, come to a state where there's no money to make the necessary expenses. Third is that create a state public transport authority, because we all know the moment we talk about buses, there are people who say, but what's the use? It's so inefficient. People don't work. They're lazy. The conductors are sleeping. Bus doesn't start on time. And they're having their tea. Instead of 10 minutes, they take 15 minutes or half an hour, and nobody answers us properly. So go ahead and privatize. This is a kind of a tone which everybody has. So really, what is needed here is a standard which can be measured. So public transport authority, state transport authority can monitor. It can lay down the quality and the performance which the organization should meet, and ensure that whatever shortfall there is, suppose there are less depots, then depots need to be given a priority. If there are less repair facilities, then that needs to be done. If computerization, because it has come into all the fields, if that is necessary, it can advise that. And the last point is the technical assistance program, because we know that overnight an organization which has been working as a neglected body can't really reach the level of performance which is necessary for it to provide good service to the citizens. So, technical assistance program uh, from a quality organization needs to be provided to them. So these are the demands we are making, and these demands are actually, I would remind everyone that we are aiming at the state government, because that's where the real, impetus has to come from. Because uh, Pune, Mumbai corporations are perhaps got huge budgets, but there are so many other cities which don't really have so much, and the state government has to take the responsibility and understand the importance of making bus systems viable and efficient. So that's the last point um, of our demand. And we have been, in order to pursue this, we have gone on a signature drive, and we got more than 10,000 signatures from various cities. There are 5 cities we have chosen to concentrate on. And we thought that we can't cover all the cities, but 5 cities, if we are able to come out with some experience of what needs to be done, it might be a good idea, and it will help us in you know reaching a kind of a recommendatory position. So we have got 10,000 signatures from individuals. There are a lot of NGOs and independent groups which have supported this, and we were planning to hand over this demand to the chief minister, but because of the condition of COVID and the assembly not, following the normal timetable, uh, physically we have not been able to do it yet, but we have actually communicated this to the transport minister and various other MLAs, MPs who have shown support. So this is the, I think, you know, uh, the position so far. So I think, have I left out anything, Swati? You can.
No, no, I think all the important
Okay.
points are covered.
Okay.
So thank you so much for that, Sujitsa. I think that's an important background of the Lakh Ko Pachas bus campaign that we talked about. I'll very briefly now touch upon the need and purpose of today's discussion.
Right.
So what's the reason that we are discussing gender and public transport today? So the reason is that around 2 out of 3 female workers in urban areas commute for work, and a higher proportion of women, around 72%, compared to men, just 61%, walk, cycle, and use public transport. And this is as per the census data of 2011. We are here today because despite women's significant dependence on public transport for daily work trips, public transport and public spaces continue to be spaces where they feel extremely vulnerable. As per a survey by Ola Mobility Institute, only 9% of women in Indian cities feel that public transport is completely safe. Only 9%. We are here because sexual harassment on public transportation, it continues to be an everyday occurrence for millions of girls and women living all over India. We are here today because the basic freedom to move through public space comes with scores of limitations for women. Every time we step out, we have to make a set of complex calculations. Why? Just to have a secure, safe, comfortable, affordable commute by public transport. We are here today because I think all of us here, including our viewers and participants, we choose to challenge this inequality, this lack of basic right and freedom. And because cities need to make a concerted effort to improve women and girls' experience of sustainable modes of transport, and in fact, by extension, for all marginalized communities. And we are here because a report by the OECD states that gender is one of the key socio-demographic variables that can influence travel behavior, but is often the least understood. And I think through the personal experiences, expertise, and interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary nature of work of all our speakers who are joining us today, we would like to make an attempt that gender does not remain the least understood variable when talking about public transportation. And finally, to make an attempt that transportation is not seen only as an infrastructure and not only as a service either, because it's a means to participate in the workforce, it's a means to access opportunities, and it's a means to live fuller life. So without further delay, I would request Sujit sir to briefly introduce and welcome our speakers for today's She Commutes Cities.
Right.
Sujit.
The names I have been given as starting with Mukta, but she hasn't come yet, and we'll wait for her. But we'll continue with the introductions. And Bhakti Damle, who is here. She's here, right? Yeah, she's
Yeah,
there. Hello.
yeah.
Hello, Bhakti. Bhakti pursued a master's degree in development with public health specialization from Azim Premji University, Bangalore. She has been associated with Masoom for over 2.5 years and is primarily involved in research under the Youth Rights and Health Rights program at Masoom. So welcome, Bhakti. The next is Pranjali Deshpande, Agashe. She's an architect and urban planner. I hope I got that wrong, right, Pranjali, because urban planner, urban designer, I always make mistakes. But she has been
Planner.
working
Yeah.
in Pune uh, for quite some time, and we have, uh, we work together on many issues and consult her on technical part of the efforts we are making to improve sustainable transportation. And Pranjali has a very long intro, but I will probably cut some of it. Um, she works on sustainable mobility projects with various government agencies. She is currently working as an independent practitioner on various projects initiated by the World Bank, French Development Agency, and FCDO. Prior to this, she worked with the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy on street design, bus rapid transit, that's BRT, parking policy, and transit-oriented development policy. Now, in all these things, Parisar has also been associated with her because we have also been trying to push the same agenda, and we found that Pranjali is really very, very well up on all these issues technically, because sometimes it happens that we are confronted by the organizations who are resisting change to say that, oh, it can't be done here like this. You're leaving too much space for the pedestrians. And now what's happened is that through the effort of various NGOs and the technical assistance from people like Pranjali, we have some streets in Pune which have become kind of showpieces. And a lot of other cities come and have a look at the way we have done Jangli Maharaj Road or Ferguson College Road. And, so I think it's a very important part she has played here. And we are very happy to be associated with her. And I think that I bother her the most because when I think of something, I give her a ring even at 8 o'clock at night to ask her for something, just to make sure that technically I am not saying the wrong statement. So welcome, Pranjali. And instead of now, wasting more time, I think because,
Yeah,
oh,
I'll
hello,
introduce.
Mukta. Mukta is here.
Okay, great, great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome, Mukta. And
Yeah,
Mukta,
thank you, Sujit.
everybody knows, I mean, because she has been, I have known her for a long time here in Pune, and she has been working for the Pune Municipal Corporation Kamgar Sangatana for many years. She has written books. She has also, her work with the Safai Kamgar has also been made into a film by Atul Pethe, which we had all gone and seen. So she has actually um, uh, been very, very closely connected with public transport efforts we are making to improve public transport. And I remember once we had a long julus up to Pune PMPML, that is old PMT,
Yes,
where she joined us for that march. I remember that. I got some photos of that also. So I'm very happy that she is able to join us today,
Yeah,
and we'll have the benefit of her views.
yeah,
Thank you and
definitely.
welcome,
Yeah.
Mukta.
I'll also extend the welcome to other speakers. So joining us today, we also have Ms. Shilpa Phadke. She's a professor at the School of Media and Cultural Studies, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. She's a co-author of the critically acclaimed and actually my favorite book, Why Loiter, Women and Risk on Mumbai Streets, which examines women's access to public space. She's also co-director of the documentary Under the Open Sky, which came out in 2017. So welcome, Shilpa ma'am. We also have with us today Ms. Anjali Pawar. She's the director of the Child Rights NGO and also which focuses on women-centric issues, Sakhi, and a consultant at the NGO Against Child Trafficking Act. During the course of her career, she has advocated for child rights issues and, in fact, went on to work to reunite adopted children with their biological families. We are very privileged to have you today here, ma'am. Welcome. And finally, joining us today here is Ms. Jaya Nalgeji. She's from also from Mahila Sarvangi Utkarsh Mandal, that's Masoom, which works on empowering women to put pressure on the state for fulfilling its obligation towards people. As their rural program coordinator, she has worked on strengthening grassroots leadership through forming and steering local groups. So a very warm welcome to all of you and thank you so much for being here. Now, well, our viewers must have noticed from the brief introduction that we have provided for all the speakers here that, all of you are working in diverse fields with very diverse approaches. However, gender seems to be a common denominator for all of you. So, would you help us understand that in the landscape of topics and issues that you're working on, which are very women centric and gender specific, where exactly does the issue of gender and public transport lie? And perhaps more specifically, gender and public transport. Like, how do you think it speaks to other women's issues that you work on? How is it placed in the broader framework or discourse of gender? So there's no particular order. So whosoever would like to go first, kindly go ahead.
Okay, should I go?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
Pranjali.
So I think when it comes to urban mobility, especially public transport, and when administration tries and establish the link between gender and women's safety and public transport, I think the key thing I have observed in many Indian cities that they feel that the way to resolve these issues are maybe one, provide women only buses, or number two, put security cameras or give them some app and SOS, etc., etc., etc. So I think as of now, when we see public transport and how the administration or government authorities are trying to link and understand what are we supposed to do for women, they only think about these things. But I think I should also highlight that number one, when they say that will provide women only buses, definitely their intention is good. They want more women to travel. They want their safe journey. They want them to be safe from not bothered about sexual harassment, etc. But then the issue comes about the frequency, because the moment you have only women buses, not every woman will wait for that bus. Some will also join the other buses, and the first one will not have frequency or occupancy, etc., etc. So a lot of technical issues come, and ultimately what happens is that at the end of it, people start saying that अरे इसमें तो कोई नहीं चढ़ता, women buses are a failure, ये आपका project successful नहीं हुआ, and then they will put remove that board only women, and then again make it for all people. So similar thing happened with a lot of Tejaswini buses. Of course the intention of the government was good. I'll not question that, because at least someone is thinking that women need sustainable mobility options, so that is good. But the way to handle or the solutions may not be the correct. And what we say as practitioners is, why don't you increase the number of buses so that the buses are not overcrowded and women are then feel safe to travel? And it's not that the conventional 10 to 6 timings are like when women work or when women go to office. It's not like that now. We see that a lot of women work or, especially in metro cities, they worked for like night shift, etc. They work in BPOs, IT parks, where the timings are very different. So you can't just have that comfortable ride during 10 to 6 and then, or maybe at 10 to 11 and 5 to 6 or 6 to 7, and forget that okay, we have resolved this issue. So I think somewhere we while we want to address this issue, but somewhere we are not able to find the solution. But I think when we talk about public transport, this is a great campaign which Samnet has started, which is Lakh Ko Pachas, and that considers the number which will give comfortable ride to all, women, men, everyone. And then this question of why only women buses and why not, etc., will not arrive. So that's the intention of this campaign also. And I think this is the right kind of approach which government should seriously think about. Second thing is, when it comes to putting the CCTV cameras or app based services, etc., okay, some apps might work or good, but I think why should we rely on that? Why can't we create environment that is safe in itself, that you don't need any app or SOS calls? So the way you design your infrastructure, transport infrastructure, suppose like you have bus stops which is very shady, not at right location, there are a lot of men who are loitering, or like something like a lot of illegal things are happening because the land use is not supporting the that kind of development. Then of course women will not feel to travel by buses. And hence I think a lot of these things once needs to address, but as of now I don't think any holistic study has happened at the state level or even at the city level to understand what are the requirements of women. It's not women only bus, but it's more than that. It's a comfortable ride starting from home, maybe walking up to the bus stop, then traveling by bus, then again going maybe to marketplace, or dropping her son or daughter to school or whatever, and then again coming back. So the entire journey and at all times. So I think this is how I have observed that how authorities are thinking about this challenge. Okay, over to other speakers.
Yeah. Thanks, Pranjali. I think that's an important point, because you're right that the measures or the solutions have mostly been in terms of, have focused on sort of tracking women's movement and increased surveillance, as you pointed out. And those have been mostly used to create safer public transport. But we need to identify that, women's mobility also depends on service reliability, scheduling, affordability, and other points that you rightly mentioned. So yeah, next over to maybe Angelina. Yeah.
She talked about this private buses for women and under. Let's talk about buses which are having reservations, half reservations for women and special need person and old age, and then other are open. So when I was traveling, because nowadays I'm not traveling with the buses, but when I was traveling few years till that time, I was always sitting on open space, not in women's reservation, and it was always fine. Why you are sitting here? It's women's reservation is there. You go and sit there. And I was like, no, I want to sit on open space. The woman who is needed, let her sit there. I don't need that reservation seat. It's my right to sit on open space. It's not like that because I'm a woman, I have to sit on the reservation seat only. So that thing means this men's mentality also need to be changed, that reservation place is there, okay, it's there. But some women don't need that reservation place. Let other women sit there. And I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to handle the men if they try to misbehave with me. I know how to handle them. So somewhere somehow we also need to think about that these other seats which are not reserved are for everyone. They need to know, but they are thinking, no, it's now our right, you are having reserved, now it's for men. So this thing also need to be changed. And men's mentality in the way Pranjal madam said, that environment tracking us. Even I'm having tracking in my phone because of other issues, that where I am, what exactly happened to me, but still tracking us being a woman, where you are going, what exactly happening, and all those things is not going to help. Why we are not talking about and thinking about the changing men's mentality towards women, and then might be it will be safe. And when we are having fights, if somebody misbehaved or molested or something like that, women are not making complaints, they just wanted to get down. Other thing, even if somebody tries to raise their voice, then the employees who are in the bus, they are not ready to say anything. Or even many times I said, let's take bus to police station. I want to make a complaint about this man. And then they are not ready. No, we are becoming late. We are not going to do that. So when a woman is molested, then one need to make sure that that bus will go to police station, nearby police station, or something should be happen, or police should come there. And till that time, bus should be stopped. But this is not happening, which needed to be happen. Many times means I myself had a fight with the men, and I made sure that they will get down and they will not trouble somebody else. And handling means I'm literally using my this thing and fighting with them. That is also happening. So because I'm a strong, I can do that, but not every woman can do that. Even they are afraid to say that that man is touching behind me, my back, and I'm seeing many times and stopping them and asking them what you are doing and slapping them. But at other side, women need to be strong and raise their voice, and another side, men need to be sensitized the way Anand is trying to do it, but still lot of things needed to be done in this sector. So till the time men's mentality is not going to change, reservation, separate buses, safety, even we are not safe at home, our homes. So that is going to happen.
Yeah. So I would request, yeah, Shilpa ma'am, please, if you could go next. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Swati. To continue where Pranjali and Anjali left off, and to talk about the question of sort of women's compartments in local trains, or to talk about seats, I think one important thing that Anjali has already said is that it's not as if that reservation is the only space allocated to women, right? It is allocated, and then there's the rest of the and. But I also want to say, and we've had many discussions with young people, particularly in workshops. And so sometimes young women say, particularly about buses, that we don't need that reservation. And I want to actually flag this and to say that what this does, the presence of women's compartments that run that are all 24 hours in trains, or the presence of seats that are allocated to women, are not an indicator necessarily of weakness. They are not an indicator of some kind of discriminatory practice. What they are, in fact, and one of the ways in which we try and explain this is to look at questions of formal and substantive equality. So you have a local train, okay, and the idea is that everyone should get onto this train. So you have an 8:17 a.m. local train leaving from Virar to Churchgate. Now, if there were no women's compartments, or if there is a possibility that women would actually not be on this train, okay, because people push into that train, there's rush hour, women may choose not to get into it. Now, the vector of equality is not that everybody can get onto the train. The vector of equality is, does everybody actually get onto that train? So that's one thing. The second thing I want to say is that what these spaces do, and I feel this very strongly, is that they are a marker and a recognition of your citizenship. That here are these trains, and let's talk about suburban local trains in Bombay. Here are these trains. They run, I mean, right now in the pandemic, it's complicated, but by and large, they run from 4 a.m. in the morning to about 1:30 a.m. at night, right? And here are these compartments. They are for women. And what they say is that women belong in public space. And I think that's a really, so also in the buses, that here are these seats, they're reserved for women. It doesn't mean that women can't sit elsewhere, but we have these seats. We are acknowledging that women belong in these buses. We recognize that women are, and to answer your broader question, public transport and sort of to reiterate what Sujit has already said, public transport is central to questions of both mobility and recognition of citizenship. The idea that that infrastructure caters to the needs of its citizens, and it must cater to the needs of all of its citizens, whether it is women or whether it is disabled populations, whether it is poor people, which also means that there is a price sensitivity to this. One of the things that the BEST bus has been doing in Mumbai is they keep on raising the price of the base ticket. And then they say, oh, people are using rickshaws. Of course, people are using rickshaws because shared rickshaws are cheaper than your BEST buses. And what I also want to reiterate what Sujit says, that these things are not supposed to be making money, right? They are a public service. The last thing I want to respond to is is Anjali's comment on safety. And one of the things that we thought about a lot after the 2012 gang rape and murder in Delhi on a blue line privatized bus. Now, one of the things one can say with a fair degree of certainty is that this could not happen on a BEST bus, because you cannot take a BEST bus for a joyride, right? This is a regulated public service transport system. And so built into it is a certain amount of regulation that guarantees a greater level of safety than if you privatize transport. Okay, I'm going to stop. I can keep going on, but I'm going to stop there for now.
Yeah, but thank you, ma'am. Like, very important points. And I think even when we were talking about this campaign, as you rightly said, apart from seeing bus transport, as I said, as an infrastructure, it is also an essential service. And by that extension, that essential service needs to be extended to all citizens, as you rightly mentioned. And hence, moving from viewing them as captive users or just upabhokta, I think we need to recognize them as citizens as well. So yeah, I think next.
I think Mukta, if she hasn't gone, we can give her a chance to talk, because she wanted to go early, but looks like she already not there.
Mukta ma'am?
Mukta seems to have gone. She wanted to go a little early, but I didn't realize so early.
Yeah. I think,
but we can still see her actually.
Yeah, we can
Mukta,
see her.
She's there, yes.
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
Yeah.
You will have to unmute yourself.
You're on mute.
Ma'am, you would have to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm very glad to be with all of you, and thankful to Sujit and his other colleagues. And it is very important issue that the transportation responsibility should be taken by local governance, or it should be a policy of the state or even the local bodies. Because I think a lot of women have to go, for example, working women from Pune to Bhosri or other industrial areas where they have no buses and no transportation. I'm working with Safai Karmacharis, and the women has to go early in the morning. At 6 o'clock, they have to attend their hajaris. So it is very inconvenient for them to reach to the spot of their work. So public transportation is a very important issue from the point of view of safety also, as earlier the speaker has mentioned about the 2012 rape issue and murder of Nirbhaya. And in general, there is a big contradiction in the society that everybody, for example, in Pune, prefers to have her or his own vehicle, maybe scooter, cycle. At the same time, we are expecting public transportation buses also. And we have to match all these contradictions in point of view of women who have a lot of double and triplicate loads of their work and family responsibilities, then other things. So I think this issue, we have to fight for it. And it is not just in what I saw in Mumbai, in local trains, it is badly needed a separate bogies and separate dabbas for women, because so much rush, and it is very uncomfortable for any woman to rush in the crowded mail and very bad situation. So I think that this issue we have to go ahead. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mukta ma'am. Bhakti, could you join in, please? Yeah.
So to respond to your question of where do we place this issue of gender in terms of mobility or public transport. So patriarchal gender roles in society obviously also inform or define the day-to-day activities of women. And public transport becomes like the most essential and, like you mentioned, most widely used specifically by women mode of transport to get to on their livelihoods, to get to the health services, to get to the place of education and so on. So women have either limited or no access also to public transport. That could also include their limited access to economic resources, and of course additional constraints on their mobility because of the gender norms is another thing. And so women end up moving about shorter distances to cover multiple chores in a single, probably in a single trip. So instead of having longer trips, they probably have shorter and more frequent trips. Most often they are also, since they are also involved traditionally into caring activities, they might be accompanied by children, elderly along with them as they travel. They might have to walk longer distances in between two modes of transport to get from one place to another, and so on. And to add to all of this, women potentially menstruate and can be pregnant. So all of these factors specific to women also majorly define the distinct public transport use pattern as well as needs in terms of again as against other genders.
Yes, Bhakti. So thanks for pointing out about the trip chaining part, as you said, that they can be like multiple stops from the origin to destination, and also just the whole mobility of care aspect in which women are traditionally involved because of these traditional socioeconomic roles. We are just left with Jaya ma'am. Jaya ma'am, अगर आप भी अपने मत रख सके.
मी ऍक्च्युली काही प्रवास एसटी आणि काही प्रवास बसने करते आणि आम्ही पुरंदर आणि सासवड, उरुळी, कांचन ह्या भागातून प्रवास करतो. त्यामुळे मी माझे अनुभव हे दोन्ही पातळ्यांवर येतील. मला सुरुवातीलाच असं म्हणायचंय की एकतर बसची संख्या सगळ्यांच्याच मांडण्यांमधून असं आले की बसची संख्या प्रवाशांच्या तुलनेत कमी आहे आणि ज्या आहेत त्या पण मध्ये मध्ये बिघडतात किंवा मग त्या बिघडल्यानंतर महिलांना दुसऱ्या बसची वाट बघावी लागते किंवा मग इतर बसनी प्रवास करावा लागतो किंवा इतर वाहनांनी प्रवास करावा लागतो. एकूणच आपण बघतोय की महिलांची संख्या 50% असेल तर बसच्या जागांमध्ये पण राखीव जागा त्यांना 50% असायला पाहिजेत, पण त्या प्रत्यक्ष नसतात. आणि महिला आणि मुलींना शिक्षण आणि नोकरीच्या निमित्ताने जो काही प्रवास करायला लागतोय तर त्यात असं लक्षात येतं की एका वेळी एकाच बसमध्ये बसले ती घरापासून आणि ती तिच्या नोकरीच्या किंवा शिक्षणाच्या ठिकाणी ती त्याच बसनी पोहोचली असं पण बराच वेळा नसतं. तिला 2-2 बसनी प्रवास करावा लागतो. काही ठिकाणी तिला चालत पण प्रवास करावा लागतो कारण घरापर्यंत किंवा गावापर्यंत बस नसतात आणि त्यामुळे काही 4-4, 5-5 किलोमीटरचा पण प्रवास ह्या महिलांना एकटीने आणि चालत करावा लागतो. त्याचबरोबर ज्या वेळेत त्यांना पोहोचायचं असतं त्या वेळेत बस उपलब्ध दिसत नाहीयेत आपल्याकडं. बराच वेळा महिलांना बसमध्ये चढताना आणि उतरताना त्यांना वेगवेगळ्या लोकांकडून वेगवेगळे स्पर्श जे त्यांना आवडत नसतात, त्यांना नकोशे असतात, अशा स्पर्शांना तोंड द्यावं लागतं आणि ते स्पर्श लोकांकडून केले जातात. बसच्या बाबतीत मला असं एक अनुभव म्हणजे तो खूपच भयंकर आहे की बस इतक्या भरधाव वेगात चालवतात ड्रायव्हर लोक आणि बस स्टॉप म्हणजे मध्ये मध्ये जिथं जिथं बस स्टॉप असतात लोक थांबलेले असतात, तिथे एकतर सावली नसती, उन्हात महिला थांबलेल्या असतात, लोक थांबलेले असतात आणि मग ती बस थांबतानाच मुळात ती इतकी जोरात असते आणि थांबताना जिथं लोक थांबले तिथं नाही उभी राहत तर ती खूप पुढे जाऊन उभी राहते. मग त्याच्यामध्ये अपंग व्यक्ती असतील, वृद्ध महिला असतील, गरोदर महिला असतील तर अशा महिलांना तिथपर्यंत पोहोचायला पुन्हा वेळ लागतो आणि तो वेळ गेला तर तो मुद्दा नाहीये, पण बसमध्ये चढेपर्यंत पुन्हा चढल्यानंतर ड्रायव्हर आणि कंडक्टरचं महिलांना बोलणं खावं लागतं की पटकन येता नाही का येत, इतका वेळ लावतात का वगैरे अशा पद्धतीने पण महिलांना बोललं जातं. आणि जेव्हा ह्या अशा भरधाव म्हणजे स्पीडच बसचं खूप जोरात आहे त्यामुळं ड्रायव्हर लोक एवढ्या जोरात आणि मग अशा वेळेस बस जर घाटात असेल त्यावेळेस मग अपंग महिला, गरोदर महिला आणि उभ्या राहिलेल्या ज्या महिला असतात त्यांना पण खूप अडचण होते त्या प्रवास करताना, त्यांची खूप वाईट हालत होते आणि मग अशा प्रकारचा गर्दीतून जो प्रवास करावा लागतो त्यामुळे मग पुरुषांकडून धक्के दिले जातात आणि मग गर्दीच आहे तर आम्ही काय करणार अशा पद्धतीने त्यांच्याशी बोललं जातं. एकतर महिलांना राखीव जागा आहेत ज्या काही सीट आहेत महिलांसाठी राखीव त्या जागांवरच महिलांना त्याच जागा समाजाला मान्य नाहीयेत किंवा बसमध्ये असलेल्या लोकांना मान्य नाहीत आणि मग त्यात परत अपंग महिलांसाठी किंवा अपंगांसाठी एखाद दुसरी सीट असते लागती, जिकडं परत मग अपंग महिला पुन्हा ती बाजूलाच राहते आणि तिला पण उभा राहूनच प्रवास करावा लागतो. तर असं असतं. आणि मग बसायला जागा नाही तर मग आजारी महिला किंवा मासिक पाळी सुरू असलेल्या महिला किंवा इतर अंतर्गत काही समस्या असतील महिलांना, तर त्यामुळं पण महिलांचं मग ताण वाढतात. जिथं कामावर जायचंय ह्या प्रवासाच्या ताणामुळे तिथं मग त्यांचा ताण वाढतो, तिथं चिडचिड वाढते आणि मग त्यामुळे महिलांना मग कधी कधी नकोच ही नोकरी, नकोच शिक्षण, थांबूया का. पण ह्या सगळ्याला तोंड देऊन महिला ह्या ताणावर मात करून, ह्या प्रवासाच्या टेन्शनवर मात करून पुढे जात आहेत. पण ह्या अडचणी अशा पद्धतीच्या खूप येत आहेत असं दिसत आहे आणि हा माझा अनुभव आहे.
जी जी, धन्यवाद जया जी। तो जैसा आपने कहा कि like our public transport services are still not, you know, as per the needs of the specially abled people, and still we have a long way to go when it comes to making it accessible for them as well. Now I'll go to the second question. So in the first phase of the campaign, we had, you know, city-specific city dialogues where commuters came and put forth their views, and we came to understand in greater detail the city-specific nature of the issues that women experience in the city, and also the set of barriers that they face in order to access public transport, which goes on to shape their daily lives in ways that are deeply, although not only gendered. As Jayaji pointed out, there are many other factors as well. So I would request our speakers if they could help us understand, you know, what are these different kind of barriers, though many of those are already mentioned. Some are infrastructural in nature, some are also very physical in nature, but also apart from that, you know, if you could talk about maybe the cultural aspect, the policy aspect of these barriers, and at the same time talk about the kind of interventions that are required in order to address those barriers. So maybe we can follow the same structure. So Pranjali.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Jaya Tai mentioned a very valid point that, you know, it's not just gender, but the women also have a lot of, could have also other issues, health issues or whatever. So I'll share one of my example when I used to travel from Pune to Pimpri Chinchwad daily. And as we are discussing this reserve spaces for women, I mean, it was same at that time also. But it was at that time very new thing. And every day I used to see the fight, you know, men are sitting on women and seat and then they are fighting, वगैरह वगैरह. And then in that I heard a very important conversation that, you know, two women were saying ki ह्यांना काय फरक पडतो, आपल्याला घरी जाऊन अजून उभं राहून स्वयंपाक करायचे, हजारो कामं करायची आहेत, आपल्याला निदान बसमध्ये बसायला तरी मिळेल अर्धा तास, पण ह्या पुरुषांना काय फरक पडतो. So I think somewhere it is also cultural thing that, you know, we need to understand. And when we say that, or when some women or girls, especially college girls, thinks that a sign of weakness that, you know, we are being offered a reserved seat, I think it's not that. We should treat it as a respect to women's strength and not as a weakness, a solution to the weakness. So I think in general also we need to change our mentalities that, you know, why these reservations have occurred. And of course, definitely we need to move to the situation where we have equality in everything, etc., etc. But of course, it will take some more time, and that's why this reservation thing has come. Another thing which Delhi government tried a couple of years back was free rides to women. कि उनको ये क्यों दे रहे हैं, like हमने क्या पाप किया है. There are गरीब male also, but I think we need to understand that if women are offered free mobility, I think the workforce participation rate will improve drastically, or even for the education, the dropout rate of school children, girls school children will reduce. Because they will have access, better access and affordable access. I have seen, not, you know, in lower middle class also, male population or a husband challenges his wife saying that 15,000 की नौकरी करोगे, 3,000 रुपए ट्रांसपोर्ट में जाओगे, इससे अच्छा है मैं 12,000 तुम्हें देता. So this kind of mentality we also see in our society. And if these female get comfortable ride at affordable prices, definitely this scenario will change. And it's not just about earning. Women are traveling and they want jobs just for earning. It's also their it's a part of their wish list. They want to be independent, they want to do something, they want to use their whatever they have education taken for so many years, etc. So it's not just about that. So I think there is some cultural aspect also and affordability aspect also when it comes to this entire business of reservations versus not reservations and how women are traveling, etc. And I think we should not whenever we talk about women's mobility, if we try to associate these things with other sectors like school children dropout ratio and how many girls children versus boys are there, or women workforce participation rate, etc., then I think we'll definitely get better answers of resolving our issues. Yeah, over to the next speaker. Thanks.
Yes, Anjali.
Yeah, actually, there are a lot of things I was discussing with my staff too. So there are some things that culturally and socially as well. So women are not allowed, means after 6 or 7, if it's dark, don't go out, don't travel. You have to come before it's dark and all. So most of the times they are afraid that they will make.
Is the sound all right, or am I only getting it?
I think that's fine, sir.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can everybody hear?
Yeah.
It's a problem with my setup then. I'm getting a break in the sound.
Please continue, Anjali. Yeah.
So these things are there. So from the home only, we were told that after dark, don't go out. You are not allowed to travel. You have to come back before dark. And somewhere, somehow, there is some fear always put in our minds that, okay, we need to be before time, or cannot travel that much, or cannot travel alone. Now what means, even if I'm traveling, we should know also lot of laws and everything regarding when we are on the roads. And that is also more important things being, means I will take opportunity to talk about this on this platform, because when I'm coming back from Bombay or something like time late, or police are stopping us in auto or in car and asking, we should know that once they see the woman, then they cannot stop us. They can write down number and leave us, or they can write down car's number and leave us. But they want this, that. So you need to be strong and know all these laws and everything. So you can ask them to stop all this nonsense and go ahead. But this culturally, the things which were put in our mind, that we should not travel in the dark or should not travel alone. Take your brother, take somebody else, take your friend, and then go. And means from childhood, these things came in mind. Even I'm seeing this transport for school girls. They are not traveling alone. There are separate buses for them too, but still they are afraid of these boys and everything who can tease them, or bus driver, or they are afraid of all these people. So culturally also, these things which is put in our mind regarding being a woman, we need to be careful, or we need to be safe, or we will be safe when we will travel with somebody only, not alone. No solo travel, nothing. Even my mother is also always saying, go like this, don't look here and there, go straight, come straight. So I was always saying that this is somewhere it's put in our minds that you are a woman, so don't do this, do this. So socially and culturally, things need to be changed. We are having equal rights, and we are equally capable, like a man, to do a lot of things. So that's why I'm traveling midnights. Whenever I feel that I'm going out and traveling with the buses or trains and all. Even we should talk about trains also. That is also local transport. So means travel from one city to another city, and the way means I remember that how I was touched when I was traveling with the bus. So somewhere again came to this thing only, that men's mentality need to be changed, that women are not sex object, and you need to respect them. Then only things are going to change, and this transport thing, and we should allow our daughters to travel alone and go alone, and we are with them, something like that. We should start all these things to talk with our daughters or our friends or young generation. I'm not very old, but still I'm saying, like Swati, I can see her. So we need to start talking about that we are equally strong, and we should not have that barrier to travel with friends, or only with parents or brother or sibling. We are strong. That is what I want to say.
So Shilpa's work is actually on these kind of issues that we are talking about. So Shilpa.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
A couple of things. One, I wanted to start with the Delhi government's move some years ago to offer free transport, which they actually implemented only on the buses, not on the metro. But there was this kind of violent reaction to it. And I also remember in 2019 in Berlin on the public transport, on one day they charged 21% less to women. So they had a women's ticket, which cost 21%, which was a recognition of the gender pay gap. And there was a violent reaction from men there also. And so there's this kind of huge anxiety about women's access to mobility. And particularly, I think in the case of free transport, there's this idea or this anxiety, I would argue, that tomorrow, if a woman has free public transport, she could basically walk out of the house without a single naya paisa in her pocket, right? So this kind of open mobility is deeply threatening. And that's tied to questions of women's maintenance of virtue, of respectability, of purpose. And all of these are sort of deeply embedded in the ways in which we offer infrastructure and mobility to different populations, including women. And while I agree very, very strongly that women do need to access public transport in order to work, in order to get educated, I also want to flag the need for us to recognize that public transport is not merely a means to some virtuous sort of employment or educational aim. That we should, and one of the things we found that if women were using public transport at night to go home from work, okay, it was seen as perfectly respectable, as perfectly virtuous. But if you were dressed up to travel, to have a good time, to commute, that was not acceptable at all. Or we often took the last train from Churchgate to Virar. I mean, we took it about half a dozen times to interview women on this last train. And at that time, the bars and dancing in bars in Mumbai was still happening before it was shut down. And so we would meet quite a lot of these bar dancers and we chat with them. But there was also at that time a policeman in that compartment. And because that policeman recognized that we stuck out like sore thumbs, we were obviously not regular commuters on that train. And so he would then start talking to us and he'd say, look at these women, yeah, baika ito ubar railet, darasavar ubar railet. How will we protect them if they stand near the door? Now these women they're going back after a long day's work. Okay, they want to stand in the door and feel the wind in their hair. Now, this is unacceptable to the policeman who feels like they must behave like good little women and be inside. So I feel like we also need to think about public transport, not just in relation to work, but in relation to play. This idea that it should facilitate our capacity to engage with our cities, to belong to our cities, to have our cities belong to us. That public transport must be seen as a larger public good, not merely as sort of building us into some disciplined, good citizens who must use it only purposefully to go to work and come back, and then that we should come back and we should then start making vegetable for our families. So we need really to expand our vision of how we see this as something that facilitates really access, and via access our capacity to be citizens in the way we want. Citizens with claims, not necessarily sort of citizens in this kind of Foucauldian disciplined populations manner.
Yeah, thank you so much for highlighting that point. And I think it's very valid that हम जब बात करते हैं कि सार्वजनिक परिवहन महिलाओं के लिए, उसमें भी जो इमेजिनेशन प्रोविजन सर्विसेज जिस हिसाब से की जाती है वो होती है एक आदर्श महिला की, कि एक आदर्श महिला के लिए ये सर्विस प्रोविजन है. सो आई थिंक अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है. भक्ति.
Yeah, so I'll respond to the infrastructure question. I look at it as physical and social infrastructure, so I'm able to also include bus drivers, conductors, people at the depot, and so on. So in terms of physical infrastructure, specifically one point after the lockdown, of course, I've seen a lot of, so just to give context, I travel every day from Kothurud to Hadaksar and back. So on an average, I spend about 3 hours a day just on this one route of commute every day. I've seen a lot of buses break down, especially after the lockdown, because probably they were not in use for a long time. And of course, because they were very limited at the beginning and frequent lockdowns, that ended up in a lot of delays to reach wherever we wanted to. There are certain route specific issues. So there are 2 buses that I get, one via Swargate or one via Mandai. The Mandai route is sort of the longer route. And then if I get the Mandai bus, I think twice before getting into that bus, because what if that bus goes into Mandai and then breaks down? Then I have no other option to get to Hadassar unless another via Mandai bus comes and then I reach office. So all of this is specifically during or just after COVID, is after the lockdown is what I've observed. So before COVID, obviously there was a lot of overcrowding and of course, therefore leading to a lot of increased number of cases of sexual harassment, very easily passed off as, oh, the bus is crowded, it was by mistake. So all of that was very, very frequent. So when we are waiting at, like I mentioned before, since it's not necessary that everybody has this one single route. There must be multiple modes of transport. You have to wait at the stops for longer, or say the buses are not on time. Like I said, because why do I take that Mandai bus at all? Is because I don't know when my next via Swargate bus is going to come. So it's better to get into any bus that comes in front of me. There are no washrooms where I stand for long hours waiting for a bus. Or I mean, I'm speaking for all girls, women, whatever I observe overall. Then is this big issue of reservation of seats, and I can go on and on about how that really plays out in day-to-day life. So, I mean, you can obviously find many men sitting on the women reserved seats from the get-go, before even anybody gets into the bus, and then later they don't want to get out of those seats. And then specifically regarding young girls or young women, is what the attitudes towards them are such that, you are so young, why do you need to make a man get up, and then why do you need a seat? Nobody ever realizes that I'm also a girl, I'm a young woman, I must be menstruating, I could be in a lot of pain, or there could be a number of other health issues that I am also facing. And leave alone people who have the privilege, who can speak up, thinking about women and girls who are not there yet. So I mean, I can go on and on about the issue of reservation altogether, like that can go on for 1 hour. And in those times also, then coming to social infrastructure, then in those moments, the people who are in front of us are the conductor, are the driver. So if I'm asking somebody to get up for somebody else to sit and that man is not listening, I approach the conductor. I have been told by a conductor once, आम्ही आता ही कामं करत बसायची का तिकीट काढायची. So I mean, then where do I place the accountability then of such things when I raise these issues? And another general complaint is that people don't very easily raise a voice. Even if one or two people are speaking, other people don't support. I still don't know exactly why that happens. And even at the bus depots that I have seen, if somebody comes to you, if a woman walks up to you who doesn't necessarily know which bus goes and wants to get to a place, she comes and asks the person sitting who sign off the buses before those leave the depot. I have till date never seen a person calmly answering a woman in one single go, the answer to that question that she's asking. If she's asking, I have to get to Kothuru, does this go via Swargate? He will say Mandai, this goes via Mandai, but he will never say, no, it doesn't go via Swargate. So, I mean, just very simple things of how do you respond? And after all, it's a service that you're providing, right? And then I expect that I get quality service in return of the fare that I'm paying. I think I'll stop there on this issue. I'm sure others will add.
But I can totally relate to that. As you said, like I won't even call it calculation. Like when we step out, the kind of things that we go through, I think it's like a calculus. It's not even calculation. So many, saving money, going back on time, the way you have dressed and whatnot. So it's a lot in the mind just before taking a bus, as you have rightly pointed out. Even I can go on for hours, but I think Jayaji.
एक तर मी म्हणून की जे बॅरियर्स आहेत त्यामध्ये असं दिसतं की खूप लांबचा प्रवास करावा लागतो. भक्ती म्हणत होती तसं की इतका लांबचा प्रवास कधी कधी 2-2 बस बदलाव्या लागतात. मग त्यामुळं खर्च वाढतो आणि मग ते पण अडथळे आहेत. खूप बस स्टॉप असे आहेत की जिथं बस डेपो आहे तिकडे टॉयलेट बाथरूमची सोय आहे, पण छोटे छोटे बस स्टॉप आहेत तिकडं काही टॉयलेटच नाहीयेत. त्यामुळे महिलांना खूप वेळ असंच टॉयलेट नसल्यामुळं हे करावं लागतं. बस वेळेवर नसल्याने बराच वेळा अर्ध वेळ काम करावं लागतं किंवा कॉलेजचे काही तास अर्ध्यातच सोडून जावं लागतं. बराच वेळा महिला किंवा मुली घरून निघताना जेवण करून निघत नाहीत, कधी कधी डबे पण नेत नाहीत. कॉलेजच्या मुली तर डबे घेऊन जात नाहीत, त्यामुळे जेवण न करता मुली येतात आणि मग अशा मुलींमध्ये परत घरी जाईपर्यंत 2-2:30-3 वाजलेले असतात आणि मग काहीतरी वडापाव खा किंवा काही खा असं करतात आणि मग मुलींमध्ये अॅनिमियाचं प्रमाण वाढताना दिसत आहे अशा ह्या सगळ्या बसच्या अडचणींमुळं. त्याचबरोबर बसमध्ये छेडछाड आणि लैंगिक छळाच्या ज्या घटना घडतात त्याकडं कंडक्टर ड्रायव्हर ते तर दुर्लक्ष करतातच, पण आपल्या बरोबर असणारे सहप्रवासी पण असतात ते पण दुर्लक्ष करतात. आणि मग मुलींना बराच वेळा असं होतं की छेडछाड झाली आणि हे घरी सांगायचं तर मग आपली नोकरी किंवा आपलं शिक्षण बंद होईल आणि मग ह्या भीतीपोटी मुली काहीच बोलत नाहीत आणि मग ते एकतर सहन करतात किंवा मग खूप सहन होत नाही त्यावेळेस मग शिक्षण किंवा नोकरी थांबवतात असं दिसतं. हे सगळं घरी बोलायचं, ह्या सगळ्या अडचणींचा घरी सांगायच्या तर मग घरातले लोक म्हणतील मग घरीच राहा, मग लग्न पण लवकर होईल असं म्हणून मुली खूप बोलतच नाहीयेत. तिकीट दर खूप सतत वाढत राहतात आणि मग आर्थिक परिस्थिती जर बेताची असेल तर मुलींना कॉलेजला पाठवायला पण ते परवडत नाही, म्हणून पण मग ते अडचणी येत आहेत. आणि त्याचबरोबर ह्यात घरचे मग म्हणतील की शिकायला कशाला, शिक्षणानंतर भाकरीच करायच्यात, ही पण आज मानसिकता आजही समाजामध्ये आहे आणि म्हणून मग मुलींचं लवकर लग्न. आणि आपण बघितलं की कोरोनाच्या काळामध्ये खूप मुलींची लग्न झालेली आहेत की नाही ना आता कॉलेज चालू नाहीये, शिक्षण बंद आहे, मग पुढे जाऊन तरी आता कधी होईल का नाही माहित नाही, मग लवकर लग्न केलेले आहेत, मुलींच्या मनाविरोधात लग्न केलेली आहेत, इच्छेविरोधात लग्न केलेली दिसत आहेत. त्याचबरोबर बसमध्ये प्रवास करताना जे काही लैंगिक छेडछाडीच्या घटना आहेत त्याच्यामध्ये स्पर्श, कॉमेंट्स करणं, बसायला जागा मिळाली तर त्याच्यामध्ये विनाकारण डोकं टेकवणं मुलींच्या खांद्यावर, अशा प्रकारे पण घटना घडताना दिसत आहेत. त्याचबरोबर मोठ्या आवाजात मोबाईलवर गाणी लावणे, बाकाच्या शेजारून जातात, म्हणजे मुली बसलेल्या असतील किंवा महिला बसलेल्या असतील तर बाकाच्या शेजारून जाणारे पुरुष काही सहज नीट नाही चालत तर ते काहीतरी धक्का मारून जातील आणि मग गर्दी आहे ना मग काय असं म्हणून पण खूप वेळा असं दिसतं की आम्ही हडपसरच्या तिकडून जेव्हा प्रवास करतो त्यावेळेस हडपसरला डेपो मधून येणारे डेपोचे कर्मचारी आणि मुलगे आधीच बसलेले असतात आणि मग जागाच नसती, मग मुलींना पुन्हा उभं राहावं लागतं आणि इतर वेळेस पण पुरुष किंवा मुलं अगोदर चढतात, मग मुलींना जागाच राहत नाही. मुलं अगोदर एका बाकावर बसली तर त्यांच्या शेजारी मुलींना मग नाईलाजाने बसावं लागतं आणि मग मुलं आणि प्लस कंडक्टर अशा दोघांकडूनही रोजच्या प्रवासात मुलींना छेडछाडीच्या घटनांना तोंड द्यावं लागतं आणि हे खूप मोठे मुलींच्या शिक्षणामध्ये आणि नोकरीमध्ये अडथळा निर्माण करणाऱ्या गोष्टी आहेत, हे दिसत आहे.
Very valid points, Jaya ma'am there. I immediately move to as we are running out of time, to the third question. So in our last phase of the campaign, what we witnessed was sort of a disjunct between research and implementation. So not a gender specific example, but just to give an example, हमने सालों भर के रिसर्च से देखा है कि public transport can reduce congestion, it helps in mitigating air pollution, so many other benefits, and still when it comes to policy, investment and money, it's still private vehicles which are given preference. And we feel that so much research has been done, and why still action is not happening or implementation is not done correctly. But when it comes to gender and public transport, what I would like to understand from you all is that where do you see we are? Do you feel that enough research is done? We have enough anecdotal evidence or maybe quantitative and qualitative data, it's just that implementation is not happening? Or do you feel that even in terms of understanding the travel needs or understanding, what women really want. We don't even know that. So forget about the implementation part at all. So where do you see that we are, between research and implementation part when it comes to gender in public transport? So Pranjali? Pranjali? Okay, maybe I'll request, yeah. Okay, I'll request Anjali ma'am to go, and then maybe I'll make sure that Pranjali goes after Anjali.
No, actually, I'm not into public transport since so many years, but yeah, it's about implementation as well as the public mentality. Till the time these two things are not going to change, means providing buses, reservations, and all is it will help little bit to us, but not 100%, or even not even I feel 40%. So somewhere we need to change mentality as well as the implementation level of all these laws and whatever public transport act is saying regarding women's rights or gender equality thing. But there is, I don't think much will change till the time our mentality is not going to change. Even if implementation is good, so many cases are going to happen. Being a lawyer as well, I'm going to fight the cases, but things are not going to change. More and more cases will happen. That's it. Mentality and gender equality amongst within us will bring a change.
Yeah, yeah. So Pranjali is still not joined. So maybe Shilpa, if you could go next. Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so yeah, I think the question was the gap between the research and investment and what we are doing and where we are going.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think in terms of research, I would say that in gender and mobility, especially in India, I don't think research has ever happened. So forget about that. So there is no data and what are requirements of women, working women, whether going for accessing work or jobs or just for a fun ride or whatever. It's not there at all. And many a times I would say that, I mean, just because we live in Pune and Mumbai, the scenario might be different, but we don't know what's happening in other cities, small cities, etc. For example, I'm working on one of the projects. It's not in Maharashtra, but we were trying to talk about introducing women drivers for the rickshaws. And then the team working on the project responded that no, we asked, there are no women drivers as of now. We asked other drivers, male drivers, would you like to have women drivers with you or not? And they said no. So that's why we are not incorporated. So you are asking this question to the wrong person itself. So you are not reaching out to the right stakeholder. So forget about how will you get the right kind of answer. So first of all, I think data is totally missing. Or even the efforts to get that data, I don't see that's happening at all. At least there is some gender budget, etc. These things are getting we're incorporating to some extent, but I would not say that in all the sector that effort government is taking. And that's the reason, maybe I'll go back to my first example of why we are giving wrong solutions. Because we don't have right kind of data. So if you ask women that would you like to have more people while you walk on the street, or would you like to have security cameras, definitely her answer will be more people than security cameras. And because we don't know what they are asking for, and hence we are giving wrong solutions. So I think there is total gap between the data collection, and hence the investments are happening in a very wrong direction. And as you mentioned about why they are happening in private transport, so we should also see it a lot of times these two-wheeler revolution is seen as oh wow, it gave access to women. But we should remember that not to all women. yes, it might have changed, scenario of accessing jobs for a particular class of the society, and why should boys have all the fun, etc., etc., but not for everyone. Who can't access it. Of course, it doesn't exist. And hence, I think we, again and again going towards that, investing more in private vehicles, because the government thinks that that's the solution we have given, and or maybe we'll give some free buses or some free ride or whatever, some uh, not well thought, but in bits and pieces they will give something, or put security cameras everywhere and see that yeah, we have resolved issues. Now we'll track, will and there is no point in tracking the incidents once that's happened. It's very sad. I mean, so it's a lost opportunity. So I think there is a total gap, it's missing. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yes, Shilpa.
I'll be very quick. I think that, like Pranjali says, there's certainly not enough research, but at the same time, I think it's not an either or question. We can't wait for research to be done to push policy. Because at one level, there is research globally, and a lot of it can be used to make conjecture. There is also evidence in terms of reportage. There's anecdotal evidence. There's a fair bit of work that's been done, even if it's not sort of in this kind of quantitative research format. So I think there is enough for us to push policy. Even though I completely agree with Pranjali, we always need more research. We need to spend more time. We need to push budgets on this to do much more research, not just on women and public transport, but simply to make our case for public transport itself. And I feel in the neoliberal context, what is under threat is public transport itself, and this is something that we really need to. And the second thing is that the situation is constantly dynamic and unfolding, right? So this kind of, I mean, in Bombay, for instance, now they're spending crores of rupees building a coastal road. Okay, this is threatening to the environment. It's going to only serve certain kinds of populations with private cars and taxis. So this is what we need research to really be able to attack, to really make a larger case for public transport. And we need to push policy based on the research we already have, and we do have enough.
Yes, Bhakti.
I'll also be very quick. I completely agree with what Shilpa said, that so whether we have enough or not is not the question. That doesn't become a reason for us to not implement what is already based on what is already known. And it's not that, I mean, we are not going to come up with a separate a theory of research and then going to implement something. I think practice also informs research. So it's an ongoing process. It keeps evolving.
Absolutely.
And whether we require systematic data gathering, of course, yes, and representative of not just men or women, but all genders. And I mean, it's high time we did that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jayaji?
मी ह्याच्याबद्दल काही जास्त नाही बोलणार, पण एकूणच अंमलबजावणी जे काही नियम आहेत त्याची अंमलबजावणी नीट व्हायला पाहिजे असं वाटतं. आणि आम्ही मागच्या 1 वर्षभरात साधारण पुरंदर तालुक्यातल्या 25 महिला आणि 73 महिला आणि मुलींबरोबर एक सर्वे केला होता, एक रिसर्च केला होता, ज्याच्यामध्ये आम्ही त्यांना विचारलं होतं की काय व्हायला पाहिजे, म्हणजे हे जे ट्रान्सपोर्टची व्यवस्था नीट होण्यासाठी काय व्हायला पाहिजे, कुणी जबाबदारी घ्यायला पाहिजे. तर त्याच्यामध्ये त्यांनी सांगितलं होतं की कंडक्टर, ड्रायव्हर आणि व्यवस्थापन, म्हणजे जे डेपोचं व्यवस्थापन असतं, त्यांनी ह्या सगळ्या जबाबदाऱ्या घेऊन हे सगळं नीट केलं पाहिजे. अगदी एसटी किंवा बसमध्ये लैंगिक छेड काढली कुणी तरी त्याची जबाबदारी ह्या लोकांनी घेतली पाहिजे. त्याचबरोबर जेंडर सेन्सिटायझेशन झालं पाहिजे, लोकांशी कसा संवाद साधावा याच्याबद्दल पण त्यांच्याशी बोलायला पाहिजे, कारण खूपदा हे कंडक्टर, ड्रायव्हर पण फार चांगले नाहीत बोलत मुलींशी. आणि मुळात हक्काधारी दृष्टिकोनाचंच त्यांचं ट्रेनिंग झालं पाहिजे, फक्त जेंडर सेन्सिटायझेशन नाही तर हक्काधारी दृष्टिकोनातून त्यांचं ट्रेनिंग घेतलं तर कदाचित महिला आणि मुलींना सुरक्षित प्रवास करता येईल असं त्यांनी सांगितलं होतं. आणि मला स्वतःला पण तसं वाटतं. आणि म्हणून मग आम्ही सप्टेंबर महिन्यामध्ये आम्ही असं MSRTC बरोबर असं बोलत होतो की महाराष्ट्रभरातच एकूण अशा प्रकारचं आपण ट्रेनिंग घेऊया की महिला सुरक्षिततेसाठी. आणि मग त्यांच्याशी बोलत असताना आता कोरोना आणि हे सगळं वातावरण आहे, तर मग आता आपण पुरंदर तालुक्यात हे सगळं करूया का? मग आमचाच तालुका निवडून आम्ही पुरंदर तालुक्यातल्या डेपो मॅनेजर आणि एकूणच MSRTC बरोबर बोलून पुरंदर तालुक्यातल्या साधारण 208 कर्मचाऱ्यांना, कंडक्टर, ड्रायव्हर, स्टाफ या सगळ्यांना 208 लोकांना सुरक्षा मैत्र या नावाने आम्ही त्यांना ट्रेनिंग दिलं, ज्याच्यामध्ये जेंडर आणि महिलांची सुरक्षितता या मुद्द्यांबद्दल त्यांच्याबरोबर चर्चा केली आणि त्यांच्याकडून काही सकारात्मक गोष्टी आलेल्या आहेत, त्याच्यावर पुढे इम्प्लिमेंटेशन करण्याचा आमचा म्हणजे शासकीय पातळीवरच विचार आहे.
Thank you so much. I think very valuable points which will also inform, our campaign and advocacy activities. I'll immediately move to the fourth question and the last question. Then we have something interesting for all of you, the last one. But so interestingly, towards the end of our campaign last year, when we were talking about advocacy, our experience was that when we went to, allied ministries or departments and talked about public transport there, the first reaction was, तो इसमें हमारा क्या सरोकार है, why have you come to us to talk about public transport? And interestingly, we got the same reaction like from the Department of Women and Child Development also. So my question is that, what do you think could be the role of allied ministries and department, who often come with the response that, isse hamara kya, like it's not within our ambit or it's not our agenda. And at the same time, civil society groups, which, might not be focusing exclusively on public transport, but also on, variety of be it women-centric issues or gender-specific issues. So what could be the role of these groups?
Yeah. So I think civil societies can play a very big role in this entire transformation. And as the other panelists mentioned that, we, even if we don't have data, that doesn't mean that we should stop here itself. So even if we, we have civil societies who have done a lot of studies, and they can refer to global data or global research, etc., and try to link it to the local context and talk to the government and raise the voices in a right manner. So I think role of these civil societies is huge. And also media can also play a very, very important role in this entire gender and mobility topic, because as of now we don't see that's happening very much. We just see that, yeah, sustainable mobility somewhere, but somewhere, that women and urban mobility or women or public transport, that link I don't see in the media. And civil societies also, I think we need to understand more about it, learn more about it. It's a very complex issue to understand. And also I would say that, right, like I'm a planner, so and you typically transport planners are those who will be working on those DPRs and mobility plans, etc. So they should also be given training and sensitization about how to look at this issue, because a lot of time in most of these reports I find is gender data missing. I mean, a lot of data is there, but no one find out gender disaggregated data in his questionnaire. And then we completely forget that the women and men have different priorities, different way of traveling, commuting, trip churning, etc., etc. So I think the civil societies can play that role of sensitizing in general, people also, educational institutes also, decision makers also, and also media. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Everything. But the things which you said, that how to make other departments or other ministries responsible for these things. Means, for example, you take Women and Child Development Department's name. So most of the acts related to women or children are supposed to be implemented by Women and Child Development Department. So I feel that we should make them sensitized that once woman starts going for work, she starts from home, traveling, reaching to her workplace, and if in between something happens to her, sexual harassment or molestation, it's come under workplace sexual harassment. So she should make all these complaints. Then Women and Child Development Department will come in between. Children, girls who are going through this public transport should make complaints if they were sexually harassed, even molested and all those things. POCSO come in between, and whose responsibility is that to implement POCSO? It's Women and Child Development Department. So all these, even rape cases and all these cases, whatever happening during this thing, they are responsible because they have to implement this act, RTE Act or all this act. So they cannot wash off their hands from all these responsibilities. Only we need to make sure that we are tapping proper people and making them responsible, might be with petitions, because I only fight petitions and then making them responsible, and through court's order asking them to work and making sure that they will work on that issues. So somewhere all these departments which are related to women and children should be made responsible for that. And for that, if not, this is not happening with the dialogue, then let's go in the court. Let's have a court dialogue, and then they will be responsible that. So that is what I feel.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I actually don't have very much to add to this, except to say that I agree that not just the transport, but other departments, and I think not just the women and child department, but also sort of urban departments, the road transport authority, in our case, the Mumbai Metropolitan Regional Development Authority. I think all of these people need to be involved. And I think, I mean, just in terms of issues, we really need to be pushing for much more than we have been so far. I'd say 24/7 subsidized public transport, easily affordable and accessible for all. I'm going to stop there because I know we're running out of time.
Yeah.
That's good to hear that.
Yeah. So Bhakti and Jayaji.
Yeah, honestly, I have very limited understanding of this specific topic. However, it's, I think, very clear from the discussion so far that when we are recognizing that public transport is a means to actually live my life to the fullest, then obviously public transport is not going to be looked at in isolation. Obviously, there are going to be other departments and bodies involved. And in fact, linking to the previous question of that whether there is enough data or not, in fact, these bodies can actually become bodies which have authentic data and can maintain these sets of data regularly. In terms, I understand that state transport is a state subject, but the city buses are run by municipal corporations. So I think additionally also adequate representation in the committee there is also equally important. And lastly, I think like Parisar is doing right now, holding discussions, consultations with these bodies is what I see civil society organizations do.
Yeah. Thanks, Bhakti. जी जयाजी.
मी फक्त एवढंच म्हणेन की हे सगळं जबाबदारी महिला बाल कल्याण आणि मिनिस्ट्रीची तर आहेच, पण हे जे काही निर्णय होतील, ज्या डिसिजन होतील, तर डिसिजन मेकिंग मधले लोक पण ह्या सगळ्यासाठी असतीलच, पण ज्यांच्यासाठी हे निर्णय घेणार आहेत, ज्यांना काय हवंय हे त्यांना विचारून मग त्यांनी ते निर्णय घेतले पाहिजेत असं मला वाटतं. आणि मी शेवटी एवढंच बोलेन.
Yes. Pranjali, you raised your hand.
Yeah, just a last point, I think relating it to the other departments, etc. So there is, we see that there is Nirbhaya Fund. Okay, now that Nirbhaya Fund has, everyone knows that why that has arrived. But, the ministry which is handling that, and of course, the utilization of it is a question mark. So forget about that. But even the ministry which is handling that, if we can talk to them in the language that, why it is there and what exactly it needs to be, used for, I think that is very important, because if you open this Nirbhaya Fund card details, you will find that most of the things are CCTV camera dalu. That's it. So they have not understood the link again between. So maybe somewhere in this thing, again, urban development department comes into picture. They should also ask the other department that what are you doing with Nirbhaya Fund? We want to improve mobility for women. And then you show us like, what are you doing? Even if that is a nodal agency, that's okay. I mean, that could be, there are several other reasons also. But these departments should also know what is happening in other departments, where other funds are coming and for women, etc., and how they can tap those funds. So one such example I'll give, like, I was working with the World Bank on this, and now recently Tamil Nadu government has set up a gender lab. And the purpose of this gender lab is to try to, have this cross-cutting thing and, talking to the multiple departments and try to understand how to utilize this Nirbhaya fund. Again, the preamble of Nirbhaya fund or whatever the objectives mentioned in the Nirbhaya fund docket might be a bottleneck in implementing all the ideas. So there might be a requirement of more fund from other sources, but at least that is required. And here I'll say that urban development department or transport department should take lead, and they should also talk to other departments to utilize such opportunities. Yeah.
I think
Can
the
I just interrupt for a minute?
Yeah.
I think that I know we're running out of time, but I have to just say this, that it's all very well to say that these departments should also be concerned about this issue, but I think, are they even capable of doing that? Because we, as a civil society organization, not just Parisar but many others, need to also constantly drum into their heads that this connection exists. They can't live in silos and say that this is not our concern because it's mainly transport. Because Nirvana is just one example, but I think there is a cross-cutting connection. So this Tamil Nadu, I don't know, I will probably ask Pranjali for more details to understand it. But if there is a gender sensitization effort, I think we should also, and we as Parisar should really give it a priority, although it doesn't seem to be a transport thing, because it's something little different. So we are busy with our transport work, and that might again get neglected. Who's going to do it? So I think various civil society organizations need to also make use of these cross-cutting connections, so that they become little more effective instead of just being there on statute or on paper or whatever.
Yeah. I was just saying that the mere fact that transport is a multi-issue struggle, and even when we are talking about solutions, it needs to be multidisciplinary, and also talking about all the different kind of departments which are linked with it. So blame the fascination for happy endings. What I would like to hear from all our speakers today is one incident, where you felt really good by taking either a public transport. It could be, a memory, an experience, just a nostalgic moment or anything. Because I remember when I used to travel daily from office to home about a year and a half back, I would wait to just go to Pune station. I used to change 2 buses, and I would wait for bus number 166 because I would be sure that I would get a seat of my own. Many times my favorite seat as well. And at that time, BRT was operational in Pune, and it would take me just 35 minutes to reach there quickly. And there was a particular route where, I would be passing by, and all the private vehicles, the 2-wheelers and the cars would be jam-packed in other routes, in other, sections of the road, and the buses will just whiz past. And I absolutely, loved that part. But because BRT is again partly operational, I feel that, I really miss that part. At least there are many such instances, but I would like to hear more from our speakers today. I think that would also help us to know that what exactly is it which is perhaps, making the systems or sustaining these systems, and also help us know that, okay, what has worked probably and what could be emphasized more on. So in the same order.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so my experience is also somewhere linked to the BRT, of course, because I have worked on it also. And it was, recently operationalized by PCMC. And my friend is, had, I think, her engagement was in Pimple Saudagar or some in that area. And it was on Sunday, and I was supposed to travel with my 1.5-year-old son. So if buses were, of high, I would say that we say at grade, just because the BRT provides that opportunity to have same platform between the BRT station and the bus. I took him, from Pune to Pimple Saudagar by BRT, and it was an excellent experience because I had not to worry about whether I'll fall down while climbing into the bus, whether the driver will stop or not, because a lot of things were automated, and the stepless boarding alighting gave me such an excellent experience. I also took photographs like selfies, etc. And at the return also I came by bus. So I think that was excellent experience of my own. And similar happiness I saw on most of the moms who were taking their small kids traveling by BRT. So I think upgrading infrastructure can be of really help and to women. And like in the entire this webinar we discussed that there could be many other aspects rather than just thinking about health or etc. So there could be a lot of other aspects like this happiness in small things which are linked to the this topic. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I remember actually it's about metro, and we took all the tribals for a protest to Delhi, and we wanted to travel from one place to another place where we can stay at night and all, and we requested this all metro people, and then allowed us that till the time all tribal people will get in, and then they started metro even at stopping place also. But when they were inside, na, they were started looking everywhere. What is this type? So I said, it's metro. It's not bus. No, 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 it's not bus. It was, and they were saying, oh, even water from our stomach is not moving. So I remember that. And why this is not at our place? And then I was like, oh, what to answer? So they were also expecting that kind of facility to their tribal area where they were not having even vehicle or something. They are still carrying the patients from their sticks. That is the thing. And I remember my childhood things also when my mother and father were working somewhere, and we always used to wear that ST Lal Dabba. I'm still having love. I'm still sometimes whenever I get chance, I'm traveling to my village with that ST bus. So that is, I'm still in love with ST Lal, not this new ones, red one. So yeah, we are having good memories and about this metro.
Yeah. Shilpa.
Yeah, I mean, so many stories. I mean, it's hard to pick a story, but I think like you, Swati, one of my abiding sort of anchors has been for many years. I traveled on the Mumbai local trains between Chembur and VT station, and so just that space, that little and I often traveled at off-peak hours. In later years, so you had a little corner, you could read, you could just be with your thoughts. Also then traveling late at night, standing at the door, feeling the wind in your eye. And I think what public transport does, and so there's your regular commute, and then there's the capacity to move anywhere in the city using public transport, using a mix of buses and trains, that makes you feel really like a competent human being. It's a form of adulting. For me, it marked my transition from a schoolgirl into a college student. This person for whom the city opened up. And I think really public transport opened the city up for me when I left school. Because school was simply, I still went to school on the BEST bus, but it was just the one route. You'd go to school and come back, go to school and come back. But once you went to college, you went not just to college, you visited your friends who lived all over the city, you traveled, you commuted, you went to see films, so suddenly I feel like public transport opened up the city for me. And I think that was amazingly exciting. I'm going to stop.
It was the freedom. It was the freedom.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. The sheer freedom of mobility and the recognition of being an adult, and maybe though I didn't realize it then, maybe also being a citizen, of belonging to the city and of having the city belong to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got goosebumps just listening to that. I can absolutely relate. Bhakti.
Yeah, to honestly tell you, I plan my whole day in such a way that it matches both my bus timings in the morning and the evening. So I calculate backwards from when exactly I have to get out of the house to when I actually have to get up that means. So in fact, there's no one specific anecdote or so, but I mean, on days when I get the bus on time, when I get a Swargate Marge bus, when I reach office in time, when I get the bus from Hadaksar on time in the evening, if I have to take for that matter, if I have to take any auto rickshaw anywhere around Pune, and if that person actually agrees to take me, that too by meter, I think those are my happiest days in terms of public transport here.
जया जी, आप बताइए.
मला बसच्या इतके काही चांगले अनुभव नाहीत, पण कधी कधी नाही का असं म्हणजे मी हँडिकॅप असल्यामुळं मला रस्ता क्रॉस करताना किंवा बसमध्ये चढताना उतरताना मी खूप वाट बघते, खूप तासन तास वाट बघते आणि गर्दी नसेल त्यावेळेसच चढायचं किंवा गर्दी नसेल त्यावेळेसच उतरायचं. पण चांगल्या अनुभवांचा जर विचार केला तर मी जेव्हा हडपसरला जाते त्यावेळेस हडपसरला ड्रायव्हर आणि कंडक्टरला जरा म्हणलं की मला रस्ता क्रॉस करून पलीकडे जायचंय कारण माझं ऑफिस पलीकडच्या बाजूला आहे. तर मग असे काही 1-2 वेळा अनुभव चांगले आहेत की मला कंडक्टर ड्रायव्हरनी त्या साईडला पलीकडच्या साईडला सगळ्या लोकांना उतरवणार आणि मला एकटीलाच ते पलीकडच्या साईडला सोडवणार. तर असे काही म्हणजे जितके वाईट अनुभव आहेत तितके असे काही चांगले पण अनुभव आहेत. एवढंच.
Well, thank you so much. This was so informative, so valuable, and just so heartwarming, I feel, especially sharing all these experiences, personal experiences. And I think we have lots, from this discussion that we can use both in our campaign and advocacy. And we are really, really grateful to have all of you and the way you have contributed and all that you talked about today. So hope to continue this, engagement. Sujit, so you're on.
I would like to add something that before you conclude and people go away, I think this has been a very, very satisfying kind of a meet, and it should not be that we are saying goodbye, but we should actually be in touch with as many of the participants as possible. I know they're all busy people and it's very difficult to catch them. I'm looking at somebody right now, but even then, I think it has been so productive and so enlightening and educative that we will, I think, in our future portions of our program also will benefit if we are in touch with them and we get into the habit of just talking to each other on this, because it's something which will help this whole cause, and all of us are committed to that, and all of us seem to feel it should happen, and I think it will happen with the combined effort of everybody. I would just like to add that before we close.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has
Thank
been
you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.
So much for
Bye.
having us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.